And now the 419 with Gretchen DeBacker, Matt Killam, and Kevin Mullen.
Welcome into a Tuesday edition of the 419, powered by WGTE and presented by Witro Wealth Management. I'm Kevin Mullen alongside
Gretchen DeBacker.
Matt Killam.
Good job.
Yeah.
How you guys doing? We got it.
I didn't expect these hard-hitting questions. Yeah.
We got an exciting show today.
Yes, we do.
We're going to be talking with a longtime friend of mine that has gone on to achieve tremendous success since separating from my friend group.
Wow.
Zach
That's a real
Vasser.
testament.
Yeah. Sort of a reuniting show.
Yeah, I'd like to think that most of his success comes from me, but
Leaving you?
I know that's probably more the
Yeah.
case. Zach Arts with Live Arts Toledo,
Yep.
and then he's also bringing with him.
The new principal dancer that they have several new professional dancers that the Toledo Ballet have employed to, which is a really pretty much a new thing for Live Arts Toledo, but to teach classes and be in the performances. So we're excited to talk to David Claypool.
I think the most exciting thing about the show is my new chair.
Yes.
Yeah, so I mean, for those of you who don't know it, we had a bit of a breakup with the old chair.
Mm-hmm.
I have always or historically been referred to as your child on the show, and there's graphics to
This
represent
little
that
logo.
as well. But my chair was sinking, and it made me look short and small.
Yeah.
I guess probably just reaffirms my character in general.
This one's a little squeaky.
It's a little squeaky. It's a work in progress. Yeah, so I am not going to move from this position right now for the next 45 minutes.
Serious question, because I don't pay attention when we stand next to each other, but my children are convinced that I'm taller than you, and I don't think I am. How tall are you?
I am 5'11". Probably 6 feet tall with shoes on.
Is that what you put on a dating profile, or is that your actual height?
I put 6'3" on the dating profile, and in my experience creating NASA.
So
Right.
How
tall are
you played
you?
college? I'm 6 foot.
Okay.
So maybe I am taller than you.
So
but
there was the opening booklet for a fall sports preview. I was 6'2" and I weighed 190 pounds. And I called my dad immediately. I was like, "You would not believe how big we are on the East Coast." So
it's like a time zone change, right?
Yeah,
You get
that's
taller
exactly
with
right,
the further east you move. I had that experience all the time with UT basketball. That I'm announcing a game, I see the roster, and I look, and some kids listed at 6 foot, and I'm like, the woman that sits next to me is 5'4".
yeah.
And I think she's as tall as that 6 foot tall basketball player.
I meet men all the time, and that are claim to be 6 feet tall that I'm taller than, and I'm not 6 feet tall.
Yeah.
So yes.
As a 6 foot tall woman, I can tell you that I can eyeball a 6 foot tall man without hesitation.
Yeah.
I think I've told this story to you.
predatory.
I think I've told you guys the story before, but when I was a kid, I'm the shortest in my family at 6 foot.
Okay.
And so it was a big deal to hit that milestone.
Absolutely.
And so I'm in high school, and you're going to the doctor, and they do the same thing, step on the scale. All right, now let's see how tall you are. I am
Put your pants
convinced to
back on,
this
Kevin, we're just doing
day,
your height.
I'm convinced to this day that my family was conspiring with the doctor to not tell me that I was 6 feet tall. It was always like, "Oh, you're 5'11". You're 5'11 and a half. You're 5'11 and 3/4.
Yeah.
Never got to 6 feet tall.
Yeah, I did get to 5'11 and 3/4 too at one point. I think that they tell you the 3/4 part when they can tell that you need it.
Yeah.
I think like when
It's
you're
more sad
measuring
than
height
anything else.
in those like half-inch 3/4
Yeah.
is similar to like measuring age in months.
But it's
There's a
also
certain point where you gotta stop
a
doing
doctor
that, right?
being
Precise?
technically accurate with your height.
I don't.
In theory.
I don't aspire for my
No?
doctors to be technically
Okay,
accurate.
okay.
Yeah.
All right,
We
that's
did
just
all
what
our
I'm looking for.
measuring of heights at speedways.
The door.
Yeah, that's
I got it.
Zach Vassar, not the tallest guy to be going to be on our show, but might have one of the biggest impacts in our community. Does some great work. Excited to learn about Live Arts Toledo. We'll do that when we come back on a Tuesday edition of the 419.
with the new chair.
Nice.
Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at witroadvisors.com.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.
Introducing The Local Thread, a community news series uniting voices and storytellers from across the region. In partnership with La Prensa, the Toledo Free Press, the Sojourner's Truth, Toledo Public Schools, and veteran journalist Jerry Anderson, The Local Thread brings you stories and conversations that connect our community. Hear it weeknights at 7 on FM 91 with early access on podcast platforms each morning. The Local Thread, only on WGTE.
Welcome back into the 419. We're going to be joined by Zak Vassar from Live Arts Toledo. We're excited to have this conversation, supported by our friends at the Community Foundation, who, every day they're an organization dedicated to building a stronger, more connected community. And so every week we're going to be spotlighting leaders from the nonprofit and for-profit sectors that are making true impact and change in our community. They're doing the work, they're creating opportunity. And they are making our region better, and I couldn't be more excited to be joined by...
That pretty much describes Zach.
Yeah,
Well, I was just going to say, I guess we're not doing it every week.
Zach Vasser.
Thanks, Matt.
President, CEO, Chief Bottle Washer
I wash all the bottles.
of Live Arts Toledo. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for inviting me. And thank you for complimenting my height.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
You're
we got to
welcome.
get that green room more soundproofed.
Let's talk about this. So when I talk about you, I often talk about how you were an adult when you were a child.
And now I'm a child when I'm an adult.
Yeah, there you go.
It's
It works.
Benjamin Button.
Great
I mean, you
movie. Yeah,
have
that's right.
aged fantastically, and it's really annoying.
Yeah.
It is annoying.
Yeah,
Because
they're seeing the difference on TV today.
This is high def.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's absolutely right.
Right.
Let's talk height, and you're going to be upset about it. Like, when did you hit this
Welcome.
height? When did you hit this height? Because I feel like,
Wow, okay, let's see here. When did I get this? When I was 6 feet tall?
That's right.
what my doctors told me.
Yeah, that's right. Your doctors liked you more than mine liked me.
Well,
I
that's
get it.
usually how it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're going to do this the whole time.
Yeah, we are.
I think I stopped growing at age 14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
And at that age, I knew you in high school, and you...
Oh, I didn't know that. I was
didn't know that
wondering.
either.
Yeah, okay.
That's
Yeah.
why we're going to do this all day.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Kevin's a year younger than me, and he always will be. He'll admit that at some point.
Does it bother you that Zach is so much more successful than you?
It really does.
Yeah.
It really
Doesn't bother me.
does.
I mean, if we're going to go down the line. Yeah.
I mean, coming from the same,
Yeah.
That tracks.
same educational
Somebody,
institution.
that's actually terrifying to think about.
Yeah.
I never thought about
What's that Robert Frost?
success
poem?
like that, right? You
Yeah.
both went through the same school.
Kevin
How did you
chose
not possibly become the same person?
Right.
But Zach, you have always had a love for classical music, inspired by family. Let's talk about kind of childhood upbringing, raised in West Toledo.
Yeah.
What did family and home time look like for little Zach Vasser?
Well, every morning I get up and tidy my briefcase. And
You're not kidding.
That's right. Catch up on my correspondence. As a kid would do.
I'd make sure my quill set was intact.
Yeah.
No, I grew up in a really amazing large family. So I'm the youngest of 9 kids, and there's a significant gap between me and the next one. Then there were about 8 kids in 9 years. So it was a hilarious house to grow up in. It was also a hilarious house to be the youngest kid in.
Oh, I bet.
And when you think about that, there are certain things that parents can do to maintain a motley crew like that. And
Drink.
well, that was one.
Yeah.
But they also had the foresight to give us all stereos and turntables in our bedrooms, so that we could always go back to our rooms and listen to music and
Isn't
have
that
a private
interesting?
space when the rest of the house was communal and very loud. So you could walk down the hall and hear the Rolling Stones and The Who and AC/DC and
You
Chopin.
crying.
And me crying, yeah. But I would have the Chopin, I would have the Tchaikovsky, and I would have the Beethoven. And it was just what I went to. My parents had a
Yeah.
wonderful collection of music, and we could kind of explore it however we chose to. And I just gravitated at an early age to the classical stuff.
What was it that you think spoke to you about that music?
I remember being young and, plug for WGTE, my mother would always put on classical music at bedtime, and she would encourage me to think about...
She particularly enjoyed it at the 3 o'clock hour.
I was just going to say, it was the middle of the afternoon.
Here comes the knife.
Get one kid out of the way. But she would encourage me to think about the stories and the images in my head that the music could be telling. So this is before I'd ever seen the movie Fantasia. She was encouraging me to think that way. And so when I saw Fantasia, I said, they got it all wrong. That's not at all what this looks like. But yeah, it was really a part of me from a very young age. And
Are
my
any of your
family
other
was very-
siblings ended up with music or in the creative arts?
I think we're all creative in different ways, and we just apply that to our different industries. And the other 8 are all over the place in physical location and also careers. So I have one sister who took piano lessons and danced at Toledo Ballet. So I'd say she's the closest to winning that contest, but I won't say which one she is.
Obviously, you and I were in choir together throughout high school. I believe I also remember you playing piano.
I did.
Was that an instrument from an early childhood? Did you sort of pick that up from singing, or
No, I
any
started
other
it later,
instruments?
actually. I always wanted to take piano lessons, and it just never came together. So I was probably like 9 or 10 when I started. So I wasn't like a 3-year-old sitting on the bench, with my legs swinging from the piano bench. I was actually 9 years old, and my legs were swinging from the piano bench.
I'm glad you took that joke.
Yeah,
so that
I got there
couldn't.
before you did.
Matt thought of it. Matt thought of it.
You're lancing my material here.
So, and I took piano lessons for 9 more years, and I really didn't take to it. And that was one of the challenges, is that I love this stuff, I just can't do this stuff.
If I can ask, Zach, at the risk of asking a deeply personal question, this is sort of an unusual path of interest for a kid. Did you always feel comfortable in your own shoes? Was some of this to some degree closeted, or
No, it was always right out
felt
front.
natural? Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, so coming up in a big family like that, my siblings always encouraged me to march to my own drum.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I
There's no
got to-
bullying, or they didn't lock you in.
No.
Yeah.
I got to high school, and I met chumps like him, and
You felt better about yourself.
Well, he was the baby of the family, so he could do whatever he wanted. That's
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, in full disclosure, I serve on the board of Live Arts Toledo, and when we were meeting about my potentially doing that, you told me a story about, because you were started as, or eventually became the director of the Toledo Symphony. Before we'll get into what Live Arts Toledo is. But you said that had always been your aspiration to run a symphony. Can you talk a little bit about that? I thought that was so interesting.
So if you would have asked me in high school what I want to do when I grow up, I would say I want to run a symphony. And
That's a great thing to be able to say.
well, it was because I couldn't play piano well enough,
Sure.
and I wasn't going to have a concert career. And I knew that if I wanted to get close to classical music, it would have to be on the administrative side. So you think about putting all those little Lego blocks together and figuring out what your life might look like. That was the end goal. And then when I graduated from college, I couldn't find my way to that job. It was a recession. There aren't that many orchestras that are hiring at one point, and nobody wants to have a newbie in charge. So, it became very clear I'd work my way through that. I had a whole 15-year plan, and then I went into consulting that was going to keep me away from that, but I could always potentially go back to it. And then that's the lever I pulled. As the opportunity came, I left consulting and I went to the dream.
And that was the position at Toledo Symphony?
I would take any orchestra, but the Toledo was my favorite. It's like it's a very important organization for me, because going back to that large family, getting time with mom and dad was very hard, and they would go to the symphony, frankly, to get away from us.
Sure.
And I started going along with them to concerts, and being able to spend an evening having dinner, going to a concert, sitting in the peristyle with my parents. Those were cherished moments.
Yeah.
I can
And
imagine,
if I could come back to Toledo and work in that organization and spend a lot of time at the peristyle, 10-year-old
That's not
Zach.
dissimilar to my experience with the park system, to be honest. We were not outdoors people, like we didn't hunt or camp, but I did spend time with, just cherished loved ones in a park, and that was my time with them, and my time sort of exclusively with them. So
We talk with a lot of our guests on the podcast, and even just in kind of the first week on this show about.
But that was before we got the new chair.
That's right. About coming back to Toledo, and you went away for school. So after St. John's, you went to
Boston.
Yep.
Yep.
And then, met your wife. You've got a successful consulting career there, but then came back to Toledo. Why?
That was also part of that 15-year arc. Look, the Toledo Blade had articles in the 90s about brain drain. And I remember feeling really guilty that I wanted to go try other places, but then I didn't want to turn my back on my hometown. So the idea of brain drain was always part of my DNA. I didn't want to say Toledo isn't good enough. And that meant that I could go out and explore different places, try on, different metropolises, and then take all that
That's right.
experience and bring it back.
Absolutely.
And I encourage everybody to do it.
What year did you become the lead or the director of the Toledo Symphony?
2016.
And so so you're in your dream job, you're doing what your 15-year plan.
Struggling with
had you-
massive imposter syndrome.
Yes, I'm sure, I'm sure.
None
But
of us can
then-
relate to that.
But then you decide, very few short years after that, to start this joint venture with other arts organizations in the region. Can you talk a little bit about, we had Adam Levine on earlier and talked about how
It was
easy it
terrific.
is, how easy it is to just, we're just going to do this little decision. But similar to you, he decided to do a much bigger decision and a bigger plan. So what's the thinking there? Why?
And give us the timeline on that, because I know, you start in 2016, obviously 2020, your job changes significantly, but I'm curious where that connection point came.
Cocktail napkin to.
So, so this is honestly where the consulting side comes in. I look at any town, large, medium, or small, has a limited audience for philanthropic support and for ticket purchasing. And the more we bifurcate and we go into smaller little niches and slices of the pie as arts organizations, as sporting teams, as any of these 501c3s, we start to compete. Even if we say we don't, we do. So, I say that there's a lot more that we can do together. We remove redundancies, because none of these organizations is working with unlimited budgets. We're all struggling to make ends meet. And if we could say, let's put two arts organizations together, let's have one box office, let's have one fundraising team, and take those savings and reinvest it in the organization, what could that look like? And if you do that with 3, and you do that with 4, and you do that with 5, there's a point where the returns are more limited, but at the very beginning, it's pretty exciting to look at.
Absolutely.
And then what can you do with the savings? And I believe so deeply in this that it was one of these opportunities when the Toledo Ballet came to the Toledo Symphony, 80-year collaborators, and asked for some help on marketing to make a really successful Nutcracker. We ended up delivering the Toledo Ballet with their highest ticket sales ever, and this was in, I think, 2017, 2018. And the question was, not should we do it again, but can we do this forever? And that's where this idea of collaboration finally cemented, is that we weren't going to compete for ticket dollars, we weren't going to compete for philanthropy, we were going to go out and do something together and hold hands and stand in front of the community and see if that inspired anybody to think differently about how we approach our day-to-day jobs. And we started what was known as TAPA in 2019, January 1st. So that was 2.5 years in on the math.
And now it's eventually become both the schools, so the Toledo Ballet School, the Symphony School, Toledo Jazz Orchestra, and the Youth Orchestra, and the Youth Jazz Organization. So
You've been reading my emails.
I have been reading the emails. So it's even expanded beyond in
Right.
2019 to add more organizations.
Right, and that's why this really made a lot of sense, was that we had performing organizations with professionals, and we had educational organizations where we inspired children. And that, I think, was the lesser known part of our organization, but it needed to be a lot more focal, because that's the future. That's where we can really meet the community, where we have young children, their parents, their siblings coming in our doors every day. And that turns into new audiences, that turns into new advocates, and that is the community. We spend a lot of time recruiting wonderful musicians and dancers to the area, but the audience is what is the other side of that reciprocal element, is that they need people to be in the seats, not because they want the applause, but that's the deal when you do performing arts, is you have to perform for someone.
We're talking with Zach Vassar, the director of Live Arts Toledo. I want to talk a little bit more after the break about Live Arts Toledo and sort of that evolution now from TAPA to Live Arts Toledo, what that means, what your vision for the future is. But I also want, before we hit the break, I do want to talk about this show because...
Which is excellent, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. This particular episode.
And you normally have wonderful guests.
Yes,
That's right. This is going to air for sure now. Yeah. Well done, Zach.
But the reality is, when you do anything, right? When you say yes, you're also saying no. When you add something, you're generally replacing something. And the reality is the existence of this show on FM 91 means less classical music on the radio in our community. You know, I joke that, you know, I go to my priest to say, hey, am I allowed to eat a burger on Friday in Lent? Here's a good reason for it.
And that joke kills.
I guess I'm coming to you.
Oh, that was a joke.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
Yeah, Kevin said.
Thank you for letting me know.
That's how he led.
I guess in some way, I think I'm coming to you for dispensation, but I'm curious your thoughts on
3 Our Fathers, 2 Hail Marys.
Perfect.
Done.
Yeah, and a couple Tchaikovskys, and we're good.
Work on that
Yeah,
delivery
easy
a
for
little
me
bit.
to say. Man, it was close. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on? Obviously, you know, we're trying to elevate local voices, but at the cost of, you know, classical music on the radio. That got you to where you are.
Do you feel like you've done something wrong?
No, I
Mostly,
don't think so.
every day.
Yeah, mostly. No. I just, you know,
It's okay. We like me.
I recognize that, you know, for me, I'm excited about what we're doing, and I'm excited about, you know, using the opportunity to amplify local voices. I'm just curious your
Public
position on it.
media organization is going to be successful because they amplify what happens around them. If not, then they're just pulling in national syndicated shows that have nothing to say about the area or the region. So, first of all, you have nothing to apologize for. I think this is a very bold choice for WGTE, and it's great for you guys to be powered by them. So, and nobody's asked me to say that. The truth is, I mean, we had a radio show on FM 91 for 7 or 8 years. We came in and recorded a show with Brad Cresswell called Toledo Symphony Lab, and that was a ton of fun. And we knew that we had to move on when we were still on a high note, and we had a lot of success in that show. So I simply see that you've taken a period of time on the radio and made it better.
Oh, kind.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, we'll be right back with Zak Vassar from Live Arts Toledo, and we'll talk a little bit about that evolution and where they're going. Stay with us here on the 419.
To me, community means connecting to others.
What will it really take to bring peace to Toledo's neighborhoods?
We're a community committed to education. Discover new ideas, dive into exciting subjects, and engage with the world around you.
It's all chapters in a book.
I would send them personally a T-shirt. Crime doesn't pay in the Old West End, pass it on. That's how we cleaned up the neighborhood.
Brings back memories that you don't think are there, you know.
WGTE Public Media invites you to Get Out and Play Day.
The people of Toledo really become family. You know, they walk in and it's just like, hey, it's so good to see you.
Hello there and welcome to a WGTE Public Media Town Hall meeting.
WGTE, where you come to watch, listen, and learn.
I love PBS Kids.
Welcome back into the 419. We are talking with Zak Vassar with Live Arts Toledo. Tchaikovsky.
Nailed it.
Tchaikovsky.
My uncle. Yeah.
Your uncle is Tchaikovsky?
I understand the similarity, but we actually are not the same person.
I didn't realize you were related. Incredible. Zach, so we talked in the last segment about kind of this combination into TAPA, Toledo Alliance for the Performing Arts. That led you into a new building and a new name. Let's talk about some of that evolution. I think Matt used the reference of, you know, cocktail napkin to where we are today. Where did the conversations, let's start with the building first, kind of where did the conversations start on moving into the former Masonic temple?
And also, I mean, everyone likes change, so I'm sort of as unilaterally agreed upon that this is exactly what should be done.
So change is hard, but change can be really great.
Absolutely.
So that's what we've been leaning into.
Yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
Otherwise, we would not have more metro parks. We would not be able to see the city grow.
Right.
And you know, there are a lot of reasons why change is good for any community. So our organization first talked about a capital project when we were coming together as a symphony and the ballet. So the 2019 strategy sessions led to 2019 formation of TAPA. We knew that there were some lease expirations that we needed to deal with because we rented a lot of property in Toledo.
Certainly.
So, you know, of course, it would make a lot more sense to consolidate that somewhere. Whether we leased it or we owned it remained to be seen. That became a big strategic objective for our board to play with. So, you know, there was a board board task force convened to figure out if we did this, what did we need, everything from amenities to square footage to location, and then a lot of listening sessions, and then we looked at, I'm getting all choked up thinking about it, probably 20 different facilities across the region to make a potential home. And we landed on this building right next to the Stranahan. It was hiding in plain sight. It had exactly the square footage we needed.
Which is what?
So we needed, according to that task force, between 40 and 60,000 square feet, and this had 58.5.
Okay.
So it was right in the sweet spot there. And it had these big rooms which fit a lot of our weird architectural needs.
Yes. Sure.
So we needed big rooms where you didn't have standing supports in the middle of the room, because it's really hard to do a youth orchestra rehearsal there, or have dancers dancing if they're going to run into a support beam.
But that's just because we just absolutely hold children's hands today. In my youth, we danced right through those beams.
Tell me about your dance career.
Yeah, well, we don't have enough time in this show. Yeah, you've seen Footloose too, right? Or one of the ones in Cuba.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
That's right, really.
Havana Nights? Is that the one you're
that's
talking about?
the one, man.
Nailed it.
Havana Days.
No, it's Havana, not Savannah. Those are very different things.
Oh. Yeah.
Savannah Nights is a very
Savannah
different
Nights.
Footloose.
It's like, I'm going to cancel that subscription. Thank you. This has been meaningful.
So, I mean, but you talk about these rooms in this, in this new building, meeting the needs of the organization.
Yeah.
But I mean, when I toured the facility, they're innovative rooms. It's not like this is what we've always been doing. So I've been doing this in this size space. I need that size space somewhere else. Like, this is a reimagining of what you do. And so where did that come from? I mean, are you looking at other markets and other symphonies to see what they're doing?
No, I mean, unfortunately, there's no track record for this. There's no precedent for it. So we had to go out and figure out what we wanted, what we needed, and what we could afford, basically. So it's like if you're moving from one house to another house, you're not going to take all the stuff from your old house and just make it bigger or in a different place. You're going to change what you need, and you're going to reimagine it. And that's a lot of what we did. But again, that's where the listening sessions come in. Our constituents, our community, our employees, we had to figure out where we would grow the best, and we knew that we needed to be certainly in Toledo, that we needed large dance rooms that had natural light. That was a big deal because the old ones didn't. We needed.
Can I ask why that, other than the intrinsic value of natural light, but why that in particular?
So our old dance studios were perfectly functional, but they weren't perfectly inspiring.
Inspiring, okay.
And if you're going to spend as many hours as great dancers do in dance studios where there's no sense of is it day or light outside. I know you guys do that in this room, but if you had to do that on a dance floor.
Gretchen's only 23 years old. Look what's happened. Look what happened to her. Yeah, forgive me, but that makes sense to me, but it wasn't intuitive.
Is your bow tie wiggling over here?
Yes, it wiggles.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've looked over so many times and it doesn't.
You're not seeing things.
That's right. Just close your eyes.
That's part of it. Again, the three of us on our own aren't capable of animating that logo.
Yeah. But powered by WGTE.
Now that bow tie wiggles.
You're good.
There you go.
That's
right.
All right. That's right.
So, what were we talking about?
We're talking about the building.
Kind of natural light in the building and some of the,
Sure.
it's the inspiration that you're trying to drive from the artists with this physical space.
So the space matters, and we wanted to be very honorific to the space. It was a Masonic temple. We were using a lot of their former ceremonial rooms as now dance rooms and performance rooms. And though it was never intended for this purpose, we wanted it to feel like perhaps the building had always been used for this purpose.
And it does.
And some of that is in the initial design of the interior. We wanted to have a nod back to the late '60s when the building was opened, not in a Mad Men way, but just to say that we're not going to replace these impossibly priceless marble walls.
Right.
Let's make something great around them. Yeah. So we have this amazing space. It's right next to the Stranahan. We do our biggest production at the Stranahan every year, the Nutcracker. And we wanted to make it a space that would be good for our organization, but it would also be very welcoming to the community. And if you think about the way we used to operate, whether you were sending your child to a youth orchestra rehearsal or a dance class or a music class, there was no place that was good for the families to hang out. And many would sit in their cars and wait for the lesson to end.
Sure.
So what if we put a great little community space in the middle, a living room for everybody to come together.
Do homework.
Yeah.
Parents can hang out. But also, if you had a kid that was in Toledo Youth Orchestra and Ballet, you'd be going to two different
That's right.
places. And so now everything under one roof, kids can get involved in anything that they want.
Or if you have a sibling who's taking piano lessons and you want to take violin lesson, you can also do that. So it becomes a expansion plan.
I can tell you as a big brother that sat in a minivan waiting for my sister for years to come out of Nutcracker practice.
Yeah.
That makes great sense, and it's purposeful. And in fact, you can even sometimes, I would assume, include siblings in by osmosis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're in the building, so you might sort of catch fire, be inspired.
And the costume shop is there now,
Yep.
and all of your storage and all of your offices and your box office are all there.
That's right.
In those 58,000 square feet.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we don't have to drive across town to do anything. We can walk across the hall. We wanted our office space to be very open and collaborative because we are very creative people in our day jobs, but we all hid behind office doors. So that open creativity was hindered. So we also had to think about what we needed from that perspective. And now it's an amazing family, and it's not divided across 3 locations.
It's amazing also when you go into the office space. I mean, it seems the office spaces of the ballet artistic director and the conductor of the symphony are almost right next door to each other.
Yep.
And so you have these 2 amazing artists and leaders of these organizations that can talk to each other all day long. They can talk about collaborations and what their students are doing and what's next because they're sitting right there. I mean, it's like an incredibly unique and creative and supportive environment.
And if they want to grab a cup of coffee, Elaine doesn't drink coffee, which I don't understand.
That doesn't make any sense.
But if he wants to grab a tea, then more conversations happen when marketing or education are in the same space. So to think about it as a more corporate setting, there are many people that are required to make this organization run. But now they're all extremely integrated, and that went down to where everybody sits.
So that building launched. Oh, I'm sorry.
I say we're going to run out of time here. I do want to talk about the new name because shortly after you cut the ribbon on the new space, you also took the name off the building and said let's put a new one up, right?
Yeah.
I mean so now Live Arts Toledo. Where does that name come from, and what does that mean to you?
It's kind of the end of the strategic arc. So we wanted to bring things together, make these organizations collaborative, and do more for the community. That was project number 1. Project number 2 was finding a home for all of these things to synergize, and that's the professional musicians and dancers and the amateur musicians and dancers. That collaborative goes left and right, and it goes up and down. When we look at the third piece, we needed to fix our name. The idea of the Toledo Alliance for the Performing Arts was very important to us, and we still believe in that sense of collaboration. We just didn't have the right title. So TAPA was meant to be a business acronym that would sit on legal paperwork in somebody's office. We expected that the symphony would remain the symphony, the ballet would remain the ballet, and anything else that came would have its own identity. But you have to answer the phone somehow. You have to have something on your business card or at the bottom of your email. And if we kept everybody in their initial silos, we stripped away that idea of collaboration. Right? So we had to have a better name because TAPA became that concept. And it was a bunch of alphabet soup. And until Kevin Mullen said Toledo Alliance for the Performing Arts, nobody has ever gotten it right in any interview I've ever done. So you get kudos on that.
Good job.
I can't say Tchaikovsky.
You can't say Tchaikovsky, but you get that.
I can TAPA with the best of them.
Yeah, and that's the show.
But even people inside our organization and on our board couldn't say what TAPA stood for. And if that's the case, branding is branding. If you don't do it right, you can't make it better. You have to go do it a different way. So that was our chance to really complete that arc, is to create something that wasn't meant as a logistical acronym to sit on legal paperwork. It was something that would be outward facing, inspiring to our audience, and something that would bring everybody to the table. Because if you say I work for TAPA, what is that? I tell you it doesn't make sense. It's a business plan. or I say we work at Live Arts Toledo, your question might be, tell me more about that.
Sure. This, again, isn't to put you on the spot, but
you do that really well.
And we'll take imposter syndrome for another show and dedicate an entire program to it. But you are now managing a complex organization with truly world-class talent. We asked a similar question to Adam Levine, but when you roll out of bed in the morning, what do you look at first? Where do you get inspiration from? Where are the peer institutions in the country or on the planet that you look to say, this is sort of our North Star?
Well, when we were just a symphony, I had one answer for that. When we became a symphony and a ballet, we had far fewer answers for that. I think what we're creating here in Toledo is wholly unique, and that means that when we can walk in the door, the world's our oyster, and we can literally create and imagine anything. And we live in a community that invests in creative ideas, and we start to look at our own horizon, make a point, and then just go chase that.
Yeah.
Amazing.
All right, it is time for Gretchen's Wacky Quiz. She likes to call it the 419 quiz. We prefer Gretchen's Wacky Quiz.
And she's
I'm going to
trademarked
throw
it.
out 4 rapid fire questions. Gretchen is going to ask you about your favorite thing in the region, and Matt is going to ask you for 9 words to describe Toledo, Northwest Ohio. All
4
right?
questions.
Yep.
Rapid fire. One.
One favorite thing, best thing. 9 words.
9 words.
All right, here we go. 4 rapid fire questions. Have you ever met a celebrity?
Yes.
Who is it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean,
you said rapid fire.
That's a fair answer.
Zach, coming from several depositions.
Nailed it. Thank you. All right, what does success look like to you?
Bringing together a community for a shared experience.
Do you consider yourself a loud neighbor?
No.
He's lying.
I know, I agree with that.
Yeah.
We almost were neighbors, Kevin.
I know.
You could have found out.
You're the reason why I moved into Old Orchard.
You're the reason I moved out.
Yeah.
You're the reason I moved out of Hills. Yeah, no, great.
Describe your style in 1 word.
Oh.
Exhausting.
Ambitious.
Oh, I thought we all got the humble.
Okay,
like
describe, not describe, but tell us your #1 most favorite thing about Toledo or the region.
I love Toledo wins. They will show up, and they will defend, and they will embrace, and they will come together.
Great.
Yeah.
9 words, buddy. Fire away.
About Toledo?
Toledo or the region?
Or the region.
How would you describe it?
All right. So piggybacking on that, we have. I think Toledoans are collaborative, and I'm going to count on. Okay, collaborative.
Yep.
They're welcoming.
Yep.
They're proud. I think we're gritty. Not in a dirty way, but like gritty ambition. I think we're resilient. I think we're fiercely loyal. So loyal.
You can count that as 2 words if you want.
Don't listen to her. Keep going, man.
We're creative.
Yep.
We're underrated.
Yep. 1 more.
And we're alive.
My man.
Love it.
Great way to finish.
Zach, thank you so much for being here. That was
Thank you.
lovely.
I can't wait till the cameras turn on.
Yeah.
This is going to be such a great interview.
The next time it's going to be so good.
Yeah.
When we come back, we are going to be joined by David Claypool, the principal dancer for Live Arts Toledo. Zach, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Stay with us here on the 419.
Support for the 419 comes from Witro Wealth Management, where we understand that your financial path is personal. Advisory services are offered through Capital Investment Advisory Services, LLC. Securities offered through Capital Investment Group, Inc. Member FINRA and SIPC. More information at witroadvisors.com.
WorkSpring. HR issues and employee well-being go hand in hand. WorkSpring supports employers through compliance, training, and wellness because healthy workplaces don't happen by accidents. Learn more at workspring.org.
Toledo Refining Company, a subsidiary of PDF Energy. Toledo Refining Company is a supplier of fuels that keep our region moving. Located in Oregon, Ohio, the refinery processes crude oil into gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other petroleum products.
And TARTA, celebrating its 55th year of connecting Northwest Ohioans to their community. More information at tarta.com.
Welcome back into the 419, powered by WGTE and presented by Witro Wealth Management. We're talking all things Live Arts Toledo today. We had Zach Vassar, the director of Live Arts Toledo, with us, and we're pleased now to be joined by David Claypool, the principal dancer with the ballet. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's an honor to be here.
Thank you so much for being here. First, let's tell us.
Let's all say it.
Let's you say it. Are you going to thank him? Yes.
Not yet. We'll see how he does.
What is a principal dancer with a ballet company?
Yeah, good question.
A principal dancer with a ballet company is someone who gets to do majority of the lead roles that happen. So let's say you do the Nutcracker, per chance you would get the
Which I
opportunity.
have.
Oh, perfect. We're gonna have a lot to talk about
Sure,
that.
yeah.
He's been Mother Ginger.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
I have not been able to do Mother Ginger. I want to do
I
Mother
could
Ginger.
mentor you.
Oh, please. I need pointers.
I never expected Matt to
No.
say I could mentor you
In my
to
life.
the principal dancer,
Or to anyone.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Let alone the principal dancer, and you actually I felt like you sincerely meant that.
Yeah.
Everybody's take on a character is something new, and I think that you can always learn from anybody else who's doing the same role as you or has done it before, because it's a different interpretation, and it would be really fun to see what you would do with it. That's so cool.
So you are a paid professional dancer that
Yes.
works for the Toledo Ballet.
That is
basically.
correct.
You perform in the lead roles, and then do you also teach class at the ballet school?
Yes, I do. I get the opportunity to teach range of students from their highest level in the school all the way down to some of their middle level students, as well as do some stretch and strengthening and then some partnering work, which a lot of dancers, once they get older, get the chance to do, and once they get their point shoes, as well as old enough to lift and get strong enough. So, yeah.
How did you get started?
Yes.
Like when
Where are
did
you
you?
from?
Yeah, because you're also a transplant to Toledo, so we're welcome
Yes.
to Toledo. I think
Yeah.
you've been here just about a year.
Less than that, only since August. I
Okay,
moved
great.
here,
So first, let's talk a little bit about how you got involved with dance.
With dance, so my mother loved the old musicals from like the 50s, so think Gene Kelly, Fred Astaire.
Sure.
I had watched those for many, many years, and so she was like, okay, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to take a tap class.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait, this is not ballet. I'm like, no. That was not the first thing that I ever wanted to do. So tap was this main thing I wanted to do. And slowly I got eased into it and got introduced to a teacher who inspired me.
Now, where are we? Where'd you grow up?
Growing up, Richmond, Virginia. So
Sure.
I was in one of the suburbs, Chesterfield County, and there was
That's
a
my
really
favorite Virginia county.
we started there, and there was a nice studio that had a former dancer from the Richmond Ballet, which is the local company there, and so got inspired by him to really pursue ballet specifically, and then went on to go to the School of Richmond Ballet, eventually going through college and going through the Virginia Commonwealth University, then going to the second company in Richmond Ballet, and then eventually going to Fort Wayne, and now here.
Wow.
So
That's quite a career.
We talked to Zach a little bit about, as a child being interested in classical music. That's it's outside of kind of pop culture norms.
Oh yeah.
For you, being interested in tap and ballet as a child, were you always comfortable in
your own skin?
In my own skin, I was always comfortable entertaining. So that was really the fun thing that happened. So I was the kid that you'd go to the McDonald's, my brother would be in the ball pit, and I'd be the one talking to the moms and be like, hi, what do you want to do? Da-da-da. And it's like, okay, my mom's
Kevin's
like
the
this
same
kid.
way.
I love
That's
it.
exactly
I love
right.
it.
But without any talent.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun, like going and doing that. And the one thing that I loved about ballet was that I didn't have to use words to express what I needed to say. So being able to produce and show emotion through your physical body was something that really, really I loved.
Yeah.
And so it's something that has really pushed me to go into ballet specifically, and acting I also love as well. But the two of them really go hand in hand. So
Do
that's
you
the
do
most
any
fun.
of the other performing arts to this day, or do you do anything in musical theater? Do you do tap still?
He's acting like he's enjoying this.
That's
There is tap has been in and out of my dance career. We have done in Fort Wayne, I was able to do a couple tap pieces within the company. They love to show some of the ranges that they have there, and we'd love to bring that to Toledo here. I've taught several tap classes there, and there's a chance for me, I have to sub a class soon for that too. So it's fun to still get to do that.
I'm curious, kind of your perspective as somebody who's in the profession. Obviously, you have to say nice things about Zach and Toledo because you're working here now. But where does, truthfully, from a national scale, where does Toledo Ballet rank?
Toledo Ballet is literally emerging right now. And so I think that everything that Zach and Eric, our director, have done really is setting us up for clear success to build and grow nationally. And I think that the foundations here are phenomenal. And I think that within even a short period of time that Zach and everybody has made this, we are going to be skyrocketing at this point.
How does that amazing new facility with those incredible high ceilings, the floors, the space, the locker room, I mean, just everything down to the drinking fountains that are amazing, contributing to, you know, the enthusiasm of the students and you as a teacher and a dancer at the ballet?
I think it sets us up as being at a national standard. I think that this is something that is putting us at the forefront, and usually you can go to different companies around the United States and see, oh, this is great, or somebody can come back and be like, oh, these are bigger than New York. So we recently had guest artists come in, and it was absolutely wonderful to hear their response of being like, oh gosh, there's no pillars in the middle of the rooms. I mean, it's phenomenal. You don't have to worry about space at that point. And so they're huge. You have high ceilings. I don't have to worry about lifting someone and having their foot touch the ceiling at all, which is phenomenal.
Same in your day job.
Right.
David, let me ask you, you know, your profession, certainly in its current state, is hinged on physical health to some degree. I mean, your body is truly a temple. We're all aging, some of us better than others. Can we talk a little bit about sort of your routine? I mean, how in tune are you to muscle strain, your diet, things of that variety, sleep? If you don't mind, a relatively personal question, how are you now measuring time and making sure that you're able to perform on a physical level?
A lot of it is making sure that you have, like, routine is key, but also listening to your body is also paramount, especially as you get older. When you're younger in your career, say like 18 all the way up through like 24, I was able to get up out of bed and just step into the studio, and you can do those things. But as you get through that point, you need to start doing more conditioning so that you can stay on top of it. Go to the gym 2-3 times a week just to see what it is. And it doesn't have to be the same thing all the time. I have leg day, but I also know that if I have a ballet that's coming up that is more lift heavy, that means I have to change what I'm doing to accommodate for the rep that's happening.
How do you, you know, first of all, there are trainers, muscle and weight training, there's a science to that. How do you track, how do you sort of set your own training schedule? Like, how do you get your education?
On this, my education was through like personal exploration. A lot of times, initially when I was a young dancer in my career, I was like, okay.
Not the decrepit old man we see today.
Yes, the decrepit. What are you saying? Did I say something? I don't know. But
get off my lawn.
Right. Yeah. That's my bar spot anyway. So it was a slow education through the first 2 years in the second company, and then when I went to Fort Wayne, we were lucky enough to have folks in the community, and especially in the gym community, who were able to help us out at that point. So there were several personal instructors that we had gotten to work with that helped me build my upper body. That was a very intensive lifting season, so I had the opportunity to go once a week to his gym, and he would give me chest exercises, back exercises, and things like that to help, as well as a lot of facilities throughout the U.S. have partnerships with physical therapy places that allow you to gain education. And I can say I've had several injuries over time,
I would imagine.
But I've learned as I've gone to keep all of those exercises in the back of my mind, saying, oh, this is bothering me again. What were those exercises? And then build that back up.
And fueling, sleep, things of that variety. Again, not to make this a health program, but I am fascinated by, I mean, you are an athlete, you know, as a performer. So, you know, your dietary, sleep, breathing habits, things like that are now becoming you know, more common in our everyday vernacular. But what does that mean for you? What do you do?
I mean, I like to get 8 hours of sleep if I can.
Yeah, sure.
Sleep is, I can tell when I haven't had sleep, and I can tell when I have had sleep. You're constantly on for the rehearsal process throughout the day, constantly learning new things, constantly having to rehash it and physicalize that movement over and over, trying to realize what the choreographer is looking for, both emotionally in the movement and physically from that.
That's fascinating to me.
So you've just gotten through with an incredibly busy holiday season with Live Arts Toledo, with the Nutcracker and all the community performances that all the organizations do. Have you had time to explore stuff in Toledo? What do you like to do in your new home?
Have you been to Nettie's?
Nettie's? You know, I drive by Nettie's like all the time.
Sure you do.
I'm currently up on the north side near Sylvania, and so I drive by both of those Nettie's that are up there. I'm like, I should really go.
You should go.
I really should go.
In the spring.
It's going to change your life.
Not yet, but soon.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I found there's a lot of
winter.
There's a lot of hot dog places in town, which I think is cool.
There are a lot of hot dog places.
That's been fueling the ballet since Toledo became a
I
city.
feel fairly confident that's not going to be a regular stop for you if you want to continue in this profession.
We're really bucking for sponsorship.
Yeah.
Welcome to.
Well, Tony Pacos is a healthy hot dog.
That's right. Right before you go on stage, just pound down some Tony Pacos.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but that's a great question.
Yep.
How have you immersed yourself in Toledo with the little free time you may have had?
The free time that I've had has been really nice. I've loved exploring the downtown area. I loved going and looking at Promenade. I love going through the park systems. I have not gone to the metro parks, but everyone that I know.
Well, that's the show.
Everyone that I know has told me to go.
Yeah.
I have tons of different places to explore. I drive by Ottawa all the time, and I'm like, I really should walk there.
Yeah.
That looks so nice. I see river systems and I see walkways on top of it. I need to get a bike. Somebody needs to get me. I need to get a bike downtown. So that's
we can help you with that.
Yeah. That would be so cool.
What does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah, typical day is we get up. I will try and get to the studio about an hour early to warm myself up, stretching, some strengthening exercises, and then we'll have about hour and a half ballet class, 10 to 11:30, and then we'll start rehearsals until about 2:30, 3 o'clock, and that's Tuesday through Thursday. We'll go on and from there and do teaching in the evenings. I teach classes Tuesday through Saturday, and then Friday I'll get a little bit of a respite, but I will also take class on Saturday as well, and sometimes we'll have rehearsals.
I think that's. I mean, we've talked about my brother's a musician.
Yes.
And I think it's you look at you look at an athlete and you watch them play on,
Sunday.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you know that there was practice that went into that, and you think about all that. Mm-hmm. With artists, you don't think of it the same way, right? So you see an artist get up on stage and perform, and you just sort of like think that that's what it is.
Just roll out of bed and do it.
But the reality is, we're talking about, it's not a 40-hour-a-week job. I was trying to do the math quickly there. This is more than 40 hours a week.
That's a great segue.
And we're not talking about performance.
May I ask, David, is there a singular, and this is certainly going to display my ignorance, but is there, to Kevin's point about practice in our earlier conversation about training, is there a singular movement in a show that was the most challenging, the most daunting, or you saw it on paper, or was identified, you're like, this one thing is going to be the most difficult part about it? Is there, in your career, is there a single thing that stands out as either the most daunting, the most intimidating, or the most challenging to execute?
I'd say that it always depends on the ballet that you're doing. For when we did Sleepy Hollow in the spring, I had to extend my leg to the side and then turn on my one foot for the whole time. And some people might be like, that's not a huge leap, that's not 1,000 turns. It can be something as simple as that for a dancer is hard, but it looks very beautiful on stage. So it depends on the piece. For when we did the Nutcracker, it was a revoltade, which is jump, hop over your own foot, and then land back down on the opposite
amazing.
foot.
Yes,
and those are super fun, and I love doing big tricks, but sometimes it can be the little things that are also just as hard.
And so when you're doing the partner dancing, as the male dancer, you are, and you just did in the Nutcracker, the lifts, okay? So I've always wondered, like, what is going through your head to get that woman up off the ground, on your shoulder, on your back? What are you thinking? What are you saying to yourself?
Don't drop her.
To allow that to happen.
Have you done this before? Have you been on stage? That's like exactly what I'm thinking.
That's right. Yeah, she's gonna hoist us up.
That's what I'm thinking about Gretchen. Don't drop her. Don't drop her.
Don't drop her.
Really carrying the show.
110 times. Yes. That is the most important thing is don't let your partner hit the floor for sure. And then on top of it, I'm thinking bend your legs. Find the timing, because for dance, it's all about coordination.
Right.
You can be the strongest guy in the world, but if the jumping and timing is off, you might not get her up.
Right, yeah.
So
quickly, if somebody has never been to Toledo Ballet, they've never been to a ballet, I'm blessed to be friends with Zach, and so I get some insight as to what to pay attention to in a symphony performance if I'm going to it. What would you tell somebody who's never been of what they should look for, or kind of inside access for them to better understand it?
I think that it's about finding what ballet speaks to us through movement, and if you can find the emotional through line for yourselves to figure out what does this piece bring to yourself, if you come away having an emotion from that performance, I think that it's been a success. So ballet really communicates through the body, and if you can look at a piece of movement and say, oh, that gives me this emotion, I think that is a successful evening.
What's your next performance?
Our next performance, we have a winter work series that's coming up that is about choreography by all of the dancers, by Lisa Van Heerden, Rachel Aaron, and myself, as well as a piece by Eric Otto, to live music from partners from the symphony and the jazz orchestra all together, and then we have Coppelia, which is a classical ballet that's going to be with the symphony.
And that's in the spring.
Yes, comedic ballet, super funny. I've done this one once before, and it is one of my favorite to perform because you're such a character.
Cool.
Yeah.
David Claypool, principal dancer with Toledo Ballet. Thank you so much for joining us.
Welcome to Toledo.
Thank you. I'm going to love it.
Most importantly, welcome. We'll be right back to close out this Tuesday edition of the 419.
Every day when you walk,
you laughed with us. You learned with us.
Hi, neighbor.
We made sure your childhood was special. Memories that could only be provided by PBS. For generations, we've given you programs that made a difference. Programs that entertained, informed, and inspired. And today is no different. This is WGTE Public Media in Toledo. It's where you belong.
Introducing The Local Thread, a community news series uniting voices and storytellers from across the region. In partnership with La Prensa, the Toledo Free Press, the Sojourner's Truth, Toledo Public Schools, and veteran journalist Jerry Anderson. The Local Thread brings you stories and conversations that connect our community. Hear it weeknights at 7 on FM 91 with early access on podcast platforms each morning. The Local Thread, only on WGTE.
Welcome back into the 419. I feel like every time we wrap up a show, I want another hour.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, there's so much to talk about. There's so many interesting stories from, not just, folks like Zak Vassar, but I mean, David Claypool and kind of his background. I had 1,000 more questions I wanted to ask.
I'm really appreciative for Toledo Community Foundation for allowing us to highlight these leaders. I mean, Adam Levine was an example. Zak Vassar is another example of just incredibly professional, smart. I mean, this model that they're using, that we're using at Live Arts Toledo is unprecedented. I mean, they go to other parts in the country and try to explain to other organizations how they can be successful doing the exact same thing.
That's what jumped out to me. I mean, obviously, I'm friends with Zach, but I didn't realize that this is, this collaboration, this space is truly innovative.
Yes.
in this area. In this area.
And as the two of you know, and many others, not to discount the courage it would take for Zach, his team, the board, to say that, I mean, it isn't so hyperbolic like in terms of survival, but that isn't or wasn't without bumps, right? To be able to say that we need to do this, isn't just from a profit and loss statement, although obviously that does, at the end of it, is a bit of a math exercise, and that is a reason to do it, but there's a culture there, there are people involved, right? There's a history there. Everyone chases ghosts or talks about, it used to be this way, indiscriminate of what you do. So that I am particularly impressed by that journey.
And I think anytime we get an opportunity to remind ourselves that we are a #1 community, right? We see it with the Metro Parks, we see it with the museum, we see it with our library system, we see it certainly with Live Arts Toledo.
Criminal defense.
It absolutely
Obviously.
right.
Yeah.
If you missed any portion of the show, you got 3 opportunities every single day to enjoy the 419. At least we hope you enjoy it. 7 a.m. on WGTE's YouTube channel, 3 p.m. on FM 91, and 6 p.m. on WGTE Connects channel 30.4 on your television. Tomorrow, it is going to be Wellness Wednesday presented by WorkSpring, and we hope you'll join us here. It's the 419, powered by WGTE, presented by Witro Wealth Management.
The 419, powered by WGTE, is made possible in part by supporters like you. Thank you.